right, time to get down to part 2 of the road to the undisputed Women's Heavyweight Championship, part 2 out of 3 of the GLOAT Podcast. Where last night, ladies and gentlemen, or I'd say yesterday night, because it's 2 a.m. as we're speaking, so probably a night and a half, question mark, who knows, where I talked about the women's IBF, women's IBA, and then many other titles that might not be major, but still interesting to talk about. But ladies and gentlemen, ever since I talked about the last video, the last thing I talked about how the IBO title had one title shot against Sonia Lamonikis, defeating Carlet Uel by IBO title. Well, that title has not been fought since December the 6th, 2014. Which was the only time that title had a title shot. So, yet again, what else can you say about it other than when I looked it up on Wikipedia or on BoxRec Wiki, technically, there's nothing much interesting to talk about. But yet again, when it comes to female boxing, guys, the real story is this. So, here's the information, guys. The WBO, WBC, IBF and WBA title are on the line on February the 2nd, 2025. This one's gonna be a doozy to talk about. And I really want to put this as a big deal because guys, I would not be making this video if I was not interested. But I do want to make this interesting for the female boxing organization and to give the females a chance to make it big. Because it seems like the female boxers are doing a good job with Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Carissa Shields, and a lot of them are doing their best to try to get something big in life as we're speaking, and it seems like they're doing an okay job. Don't get me wrong, guys, even though WWE female wrestlers today are doing the best they can being main event wannabes, and that's a good success for WWE, but because wrestling is a different world where it's turning into a PG era and not making it fiction of reality because it's not as entertainingly great than it was in the Attitude Era. So some fans will laugh at it and think it's a joke. It's not good. We all know it's just too colorful, and it is what it is, guys. The world changes, and that's the way it is. And but at the end of the day, guys, we all have to understand. Even though we know it's predetermined, preordained, it's not real. It doesn't mean that people still get hurt, whether it's wrestling, MMA, or boxing. People still get hurt for real, and I think we all have to understand that. But yet again, guys, even though there's not a lot of females in these higher class divisions and a lot of them in the lower class divisions, which is where you'll get the bigger money, because it is what it is. It is what it is. Because us men, because I'm a 6'3" tall person, even though I'm 270 pounds, even though my body doesn't look like that, because my body doesn't look like I'm 270 pounds. Even though I look like I'm a 250-pound person, even though I do have a big gut going. Well, do I have a big gut? Probably, yeah, still, but yeah, I'm a 275-pound person. Believe me, I built up a lot of fat and a lot of juicy thighs here. Take that to the bank. But when you have female boxers in a minimum weight division, bantamweight, and a little bit of super welterweight division and other divisions from that division, there's a lot of females that are 5 feet tall and great, well built, and they do get a lot of stuff going. And even though when Senicia Strata became the minimum weight undisputed championship last year, got a lot of heads turning, and I was entertained by that fight, and I think it brought in a lot of successful money as of right now during that fight. And even though it stated that she retired after that fight, which I hope, there's still some great talented females in the division. But when you go up to the heavyweight, light heavyweight, you do see a little bit of great stuff. And even the super middleweight as well, because you have Savannah Marshall and Krezon Cruz and Carissa Shields. And then you see these random names like Danielle Perkins, um, Menelis Bianco, number 2 in the heavyweight in BoxRec, Lonnie Daniels, Vanessa LePage, Chi Kanili, and Sarah Skruwich from Germany, Balatito Aluol. And then you think to yourself, who the heck are these females, and why are they ranked high? Why is there not a lot of females in the light heavyweight and the heavyweight, and not a lot in the super middleweight or even in the middleweight division? And I guess it's because there's not a lot of talent. I guess if you have females that are 6 feet tall, they're going to be performing playing basketball, or just do nothing but have I won't get into that. That's inappropriate, but well, let's not get into that. My point is, guys, we don't have a lot of tall females, but we do, and sometimes for us men, because guys, us men have been growing, having a lot of growth spurts in our time. Believe me, guys, a couple thousand years ago, we never had a lot of tall people. Hey, guys, how many people were 10 feet tall like Goliath back in the old days? Probably a couple. Because back then, there wasn't a lot of nutrition or vitamins to get our bodies pumping back in the old days, because we had a lot of people that were 5 feet 5 inches tall, which is a perfect height for a woman. Or is it 5 feet 6, which was on Family Feud, which was the number one answer. And one person thought it was 4 feet 11 or 4 feet 6 or 5 feet 10. I don't know. But still, my point is, guys, there isn't going to be a lot of female competition because of that, and we might never see another woman like Vonda Ward, a great boxer that knew what a heavyweight boxing fight in the women's division should be, and there's not a lot. So you can be a basketball player or whatever. I'm not saying, but there is a lot of tall people in this world today. When it comes to females and boxing, that's a hard rarity to find in today's world. And I'm not trying to offend you people. I don't want to offend women. I don't want to do that. I'm just trying to prove a point and why there's not a lot of females ranked in today's world. And I like Savannah Marshall, Melinda Watpool, Shadicia Green, and Carissa Shields and Cruz, because they are proving themselves as tough girls in the super middleweight to the middleweight and the heavyweight for some. And they're doing the best they can to make a big deal. And that's what I like about Carissa Shields and Danielle Perkins. And even though Danielle Perkins is a forgotten commodity in boxing, and even though they're putting these 2 unforgotten titles that have never been fought in women's boxing before in the heavyweight, it's great that we're finally getting this, because it was like a trillion to one that this was never going to happen. And Carissa Shields decided to push the boundaries. And guess what? She's doing it right now. But now I'm wondering, how do we get into this mess? How do we get to this moment? Yeah, guys, let's go back to February 2007. Guys, remember when Vonda Ward became a champion in the when she retained her IBA title against Martha Salazar in 2007? Well, guys, I completely forgot, and I didn't know about this until I looked this up when making this podcast, that in February the 10th, the WBC heavyweight title was actually on the line that same night. So, yeah, Vonda Ward fought for the first ever inaugural major title in boxing, and she won. Sadly, that belt would be vacated and gone forever until November 8, 2014, when Martha Salazar defeated an unknown quantity named Tanzi Danielle. She goes 10 rounds decision with her, and Martha gets her victory. After 7.5 years, she finally got back, even though she had a lot of ups and downs in her career. And she actually retired after she lost against Vonda Ward in 2007, But she came out of retirement in 2013 after 6 years out of the ring. She defeated a Sonia Lemonikis, the woman I talked about that won the IBO title in 2012, and that belt hasn't been seen since. Well, yeah, that's brains. Well, yeah, she came out a year and a half later and took on this woman that was 4-3-1. Her record resume was lousy enough, and her 3 losses were against Sonia Lamanakis. Well, guess what? Tanzi would never box again after her loss against Martha Salazar. But Martha Salazar's success of winning that WBC heavyweight title was well, it came to an end. She held on to the title for over a full year without retaining it or even having a fight in 2015. Until March 18th, 2016, she fought in Mexico, where we had the first ever female Mexican champion and the only one in history of boxing. 3 years before the first male fighter of Andy Ruiz in Mexico, as a Mexican fighter would become heavyweight champion. Guys, I want to skip through this one as quickly as I can because I can't even talk straight. I know we're 11 minutes into this podcast, guys, but I'm going to skip this one as quickly as I can because I don't want to get into this, but guys, I'm going to talk about this one later. Guys, I'm going to skip the WBC after this. Guys, I'm going to talk about the WBC a little later. I think because I'm going to save this topic for the end because this one, I just don't want to get jumped on yet. So I'm going to talk about the WBC later. First of all, guys, the WBF World Boxing Federation title debuted after the women's IBF title with Natalia Rogozina when she defeated Pamela London. I talked about that in my last part 1 episode of the GLOAT Podcast. And yeah, the World Boxing Federation heavyweight title was on the line that same night as well. So good job for Natalia to win that belt. The thing was, that belt was never on the line again when she retired because Natalia retired for good after that fight. The thing was, the belt never came back again until July the 27th, 2024, when, yes, Carissa Shields defeated Vanessa LePage. And guys, I've talked about the information before, and I am confused why commentators and other people at the time completely ignored the WBF title that was on the line that night. They only talked about her winning the WBC and the WBO title, and just talk about, and the one commentator talking about how those titles were not separate. And fun fact, guys, I clicked on Wiki on BoxRec called fight number 317801, and it says right here on the page discussion of BoxRec saying that the 2 titles say heavyweight title and one says light heavyweight title. I think this is an error and they should all be light heavyweight. I think the reason that was the case is because Carissa Shields was 174 3/4 pounds and Vanessa LePage was 174.5 pounds. That's the weight class for a light heavyweight. Because you're supposed to be 175 1/4 pounds to 200 or over that minimum to be in the heavyweight division. But yet again, if that was the case, what about the cruiserweight division on the list of current female champions, which still says cruiserweight, but there's no titles on the line except nothing. For a reason why female boxing and everyone else is ignoring the cruiserweight division, I'll never know. But yet again, if Carissa Shield ever comes up with some dumb idea of putting that on the line or something, it's just ridiculous. Just don't think about it, Carissa. Just don't. My point is, guys, it is ridiculous because at the time, just looking at that, like, yeah, talking about that is ridiculous. And even though I just want to get through this as best I can, I don't want to talk about this fight anymore because I already talked about it half a year ago when I did my other GLOAT podcast about this fight I reviewed from start to finish, because I just don't know. I just don't know what to say about this. It just has a lot of problems. It's given mid. And I don't know how to explain it to you viewers. It's just like talking about how you have the merch of having a light heavyweight title and a heavyweight title in one match is ridiculous. But here's the thing, guys. That was not the only time in boxing and women's boxing that has happened before. And I'm going to get to that because it does have something to do with something later in this episode. So keep your ears open. I'm going to get to that some other time. Because as we're crossing our way to the rainbow, even though there's nothing much to say about this, I do like to point this out to you viewers that the WBO and the WBA title have never been on the line in a women's heavyweight boxing division, as said before. But what about the IBF? Because they did say on Wikipedia that the IBF and the WBC are the two major belts in the heavyweight division, right? Well, the IBF, on the other hand, was never a title until May the 27th, 2023 in New Zealand. Both girls are female in New Zealand. Lonnie Daniels would defeat Alri Malicia in a 10-round unanimous decision for the inaugural International Boxing Federation title in the women's boxing history. Sadly, this woman already suffered her first loss against someone that she had a rematch with last year ago. So, yeah, her career was done. And after that loss by domination against Lonnie Daniels, because this was for the inaugural title, Lonnie Daniels became a champion. And after her failures early on to her career, she's a heavyweight champion. And fun fact, on BoxRec, it stated that this fight on Wiki states that considering this is the 6th time in history that a world title bout from one of the 4 major sanction bodies was held in New Zealand. That is a little bit interesting to hear that. The 6th time in history. Not in female boxing, but in male boxing as well. First ever women's, this or that. First time a world title was contested between two, New Zealand born, and might be the only time. First time in world title was contested between, okay. And first time a female Pacifica boxer to fight for a world title. Pacifica? First female in between first time a world title was contested between a Maori and Pacifica boxers? For a world title. Interesting. Must be a New Zealand thing. I don't know. Can someone tell me what a Pacifica and a Maori is? Interesting. Daniels was ranked number 1 WBC on BoxRec. Yep, number 2 in WBA. What? Interesting. When you're champion, number 1. When you're champion. Interesting enough. Yeah. So, yeah, New Zealand. A female in New Zealand. And by the way, this was the 2022 New Zealand Fight of the Year when Lonnie Daniels won that fight. Lonnie Daniels was 180 pounds when she had this heavyweight fight, which is fair enough. The other female was 201.5 pounds. But yeah, that would not be the end because months later, on August 26th, she would retain that title against a South African woman named Razel Mohammed. The woman's career had a problem. She had a couple draws in her first debut, had a rematch and 2 wins against the same woman that she had in her second draw, and won a 2-0 fight, and she lost by round 4 TKO in that fight against Lonnie Daniels. She retired for good and never fought again, and Daniels was forced to vacate the heavyweight title after winning the light heavyweight title in the in the IBF light heavyweight title. If you guys didn't know that, because after this fight, Lonnie Daniels would actually vacate it, and she would take on Desley Robinson, the woman known for her controversial loss against Kay Scott last year. But of course, in 2024, when she lost against a 40-year-old mother, which was a mother time coming to her favor, when Kay Scott defeated her by controversial decision loss months after Lonnie Daniels defeated her for the light heavyweight vacant title, IBF. But it's great because Desley Robinson had a revenge on December the 13th, defeating Kay Scott in a rematch, making Kay Scott the biggest bum in Australia. Yeah, 40 years old, mother time got the favor in her, and she started her pro way too late into her career. It's ridiculous how many females are in their 40s and 30s, and they're boxing their way no matter how many losses they have. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and then of course in September the 9th last year, as 2024, she defeated Balo Tito Aluwal from Nigeria, bummed out 9-0 fighter, and yeah, that was about it. Nothing much about the IBF world title until this fight on February the 2nd. So those are the only two titles that were fought by the IBF. So now that all of that has been gone, and we're 21 minutes into this podcast, guys, I don't know what to say about this one, because this one, guys, oh man, I don't want to talk about this because after the Iman Khalif controversy and how Iman Khalif, some people tested that she was a man competing in a women's sport in the Olympics, and she won gold medal in the 2024 Olympic Games. But yet again, guys, after looking up information and trying to get prepared to talk about the information, I 100% believe that all of this might be a lie. But I want you viewers to pay attention close and understand why I'm having this uncomfortable feeling, because you viewers might think that I'm joking, but here's the thing. So guys, Martha Salazar, as said before, in November 2014, she won the WBC title, and she held it for a full year until March the 18th, 2016. She goes to Mexico and she fights for the title in her first title defense against the Mexican 5-0 Alejandra Jimenez. Now, I don't know if I pronounced her name wrong, but I do apologize if I did. But let's just say that this woman has a lot of information I have to talk about, and I have to get it out of my system. But let's get to the title defenses. So Alejandra would defeat Martha by scorecards of 95 even, making it a majority win for 96, 94, 98 to 93. And while we're at it, as we're speaking, Jimenez would have a little bit of non-title fights in her career at this time, but she would take a full year off until April the 1st, 2017, when she took on Carlette Ewell. Now, Ewell was already past out her prime. She was not as said, she was a 5'8", 220-pound person. And even though Alejandra was 224, 5'11", so part of that seemed like this was her favorite. And Carlette was not in her prime anymore. She went in by 57 seconds, and those 57 seconds were the end of her career, where Alejandra ended her career. She knocked her out in the first round. The count was waved off by 57 seconds, and it was a real domination fight. It was just that. But yeah, and the thing is, Alejandra had knockout wins in her career, which there's not a lot of knockout wins in female boxing. But when it comes to some, I did look up some resume of some female fighters in boxing when it comes to the heavyweight and light heavyweight, and a lot of females do score a lot of knockouts if they're in the heavyweight and light heavyweight. So I guess there's nothing to worry about, and I'm going to get to the information about this just to let you viewers understand what I'm talking about. So 2 months later, she had a non-title fight against someone, round 2 TKO. And then in August the 12th, 4 months after her first title defense, she would take on the Canadian fighter Vanessa LePage. I've talked about LePage's career. She had a couple wins against the same person, undefeated, rematch win, and then another fighter she had deservingly, and then she lost against. After Vanessa LePage was 180 pounds, she growed out from 231 in that fight against Alejandra, which might have not been a good idea because she lost by third round TKO, and she never fought again until 2023. She had a few wins, and well, we'll get to that moment in just a minute. And then in November of 2017, Alejandra would have a non-title fight. She would still be known as a recognized champion at this moment until 2019, but she would have non-title fights. She would actually lose weight at 236 to 216 3 months later during her non-title fight, and then in April the 14th, she would weigh 176 in a majority draw against a nobody fighter that was 2-1. And of course, in September the 22nd, she had a win against a 3-0 fighter when she was 169 in the third quarter pounds. And then she was 167 in her first super middleweight fight against the same woman she scored a draw with in February of 2019. So her idea was she was going to go up to super middleweight to fight for a title. And she did. She fought for the WBC and WBO super middleweight title against Cruz Dezern. And even though this has nothing to do with the heavyweight, the story goes that Dezern had a problem with her wig at the time. And guys, remember the famous moment where a trainer was arguing with the woman saying, "Do you want your titles or not?" And someone ripped a wig off the woman's hair and the crowd were going crazy and the trainer slapped her. That was the same exact fight that night. And Alejandra was fighting against Cruz Dezern that had a problem with her wig, and the trainer wanted that wig off. Yeah, guys, Dezern wasted all of that time in her career, and she lost by split decision. It was ridiculous. And Alejandra would win the title, strip out the belt, but then a month later, after that fight, it later stated that the fight was changed to a no decision by Texas Commission on February the 10th, 2020, 1 month ago. Why? Because it stated that she failed a drug test. But the real thing I want you viewers to know is that it's not that she failed the drug test is what it is. It's the story of what about the woman that she fought against that night. So in February, it did state that she won the titles for the super middleweight title, but then the fight was changed to a decision due to her failing a pre-fight drug test. She was suspended 9 months and was stripped of the titles. It stated that she had a drug test fail, and WBAC had reinstated it for some reason. But when I try to look up information about the drug thing and try to understand if there is anything or because it stated that the Anti-Doping Association collected urine sample from Jimenez a day before the fight and came back on January 24th and had a banned substance of steroid stanozolol. Both Jimenez's A and B samples were tested positive. So, yeah, and I guess for steroid stuff, when it comes to a woman like Alejandro that weighed approximately 236 pounds in 2017, the heaviest in her career against her LePage win, losing that amount of weight in 2.5 years from 236.5 to 164.5 to fight in the super middleweight, that's a lot of weight to lose. And I guess when it comes to that, I guess anabolic steroids was a thing for her, but it cost her. But here's the thing that I don't like. In December the 22nd, 2022, and even though Jimenez never fought again after that drug test thing, and she's retired ever since from professional boxing, it also stated that amid allegations that she was born a male. Yeah. This is bad. So in response to the allegation, oh God, how do I pronounce this word? Hypo something, hypo, I don't know how to pronounce that. In response to the allegations, Jimenez stated that even though when people said that the public stated that she was a male due to her looks and how her face looked and how built she was, nothing similar than Iman Khalif, but it's stated that in response, Jimenez stated that she had hypothyroidism, which is an abnormally low activity of a thyroid gland, resulting in slowing of growth and mental development in children and metabolic changes in adults. And guys, when looking at photos of people that have this disease and such, and which is nothing much to say about it, and even though this does happen on women as well and such, but mostly for men and such, and even though this does happen as a childbirth and sometimes, and I guess Alejandro did have problems in her time, and when looking at some of the photos of her, it does look like that her face and her body does have the hypothyroidism, and I do see that. So I don't think Alejandro is a male, but she does have this symptom. And I do think that she's a victim of circumstances. I don't think she is like Iman Khalif. And I don't want to talk about the genderism thing. I don't want to talk about male or females or why, because guys, at the end of the day, guys, I don't want to get into that because, like, yes, it's like people think to yourself, oh wait, if women are playing PBA bowling and if women think it's okay to bowl for the big dogs, is it normal for a guy to play bowling against women? Oh, is it normal for us men to play boxing and start boxing in the pros against women? Guys, the thing is, guys, I'm going to talk about this later. Guys, remember when I talked about how us men have... Guys, remember when I talked about a while back in this episode, talking about us men have been playing sports for a long time? Guys, us men have played sports for a long time, even during the Olympic Games. And females have never played sports in the Olympic Games until maybe 1900. Like, guys, the first time they ever premiered the inaugural of golf was in 1900, where they had two events, men and women. Us men had to play 36 holes, while women had to play 9 holes of golf. And they were dressed up in long dresses, so I guess it was hard, but you get what I mean. There's not a lot. So women have never been in a lot of sports. It's only been a full century since women have been playing this competition. So we have to understand that us men have been around the sport for a long time. So when you have a man performing against women that have been around the women's sport for a century, like boxing, maybe a half a century, that's not good. Like, guys, it's great that you have a woman named Kelly Kulick to become the first woman to win a PBA bowling title, even in a major against big dogs like friggin' Chris Barnes in 2010 in the TOC. That's legendary. But it is a little bit bad if you have a man dressed up as a woman or even have a symptom like a woman. No, I despise that. It's bad. It's wrong. It's wrong if you have that. It even upsets me that Ninja Warrior or Sasuke in Japan, because Japan already did the 42nd Sasuke division, and there's women performing there now, and there's not a lot of Japanese girls that are performing at the division. And they even brought back the division Kunoichi, which is similar to Sasuke, but only for women only. Can you imagine if a guy was almost like a woman and he was in the sport pretending to be a woman? Oh my God, that would be so disrespectful and so bad. Like, we're trying to have women to be involved in competition in their own division, and Kunoichi became a failure even in 2001 to 2009. Even though they had 8 Kunoichis and it seemed like it was a success, they bring it back 8 or 9 years later and they did a few events and it was a fail after 3 Kunoichis. And now women in Japan can't be nothing but failures because they're not better than men in Sasuke. It's really bad that they don't have that. And it's bad that women's sumo wrestling is not a successful division anymore because they think, oh, it's a little bit unfair that, oh, let's not get into the pervy, degenerate stuff just because you have a bunch of men wearing thongs and such and uniform and sumo wrestling and women have to wear tight pants and that. It could just not get to that. That's the reason why it's failed. It's failed, fine, but let's not get to the perviness, please. Let's not talk about that. I just don't want men to be like women and being in that. Like having men to be like guys, men pretending to be like they're fully grown women and playing in sport against women's sports is really bad. And I despise that. I don't like it. And I don't know. I don't know what to say. So I just want to ignore that. And by the way, even though Alejandro Jimenez is undefeated with 12 wins, 9 knockouts, a draw, and then 1 no contest, and even though she retired undefeated as a champion in heavyweight, to be honest, it doesn't say information of the list of undefeated champions on Wikipedia for some reason. So maybe they're questioning that because they still think she's a male. But by the looks of it, she does look like a female. And 100% I do believe she is a female, fully grown. But guys, here's the thing. Even though she stripped out, she relinquished the title in 2019. It took us another couple years later until April the 17th, 2021, where we had Hannah Gabriels coming out of nowhere, fighting against the one and only journeyman Martha Lara Gayton in Costa Rica. The fight went on as similar as it is. Hannah won the fight. She went into the first round and someone heard a 10-second clap and the referee told her it's not the end of the fight. It was just a warning to say the round's over. I don't know why Martha didn't step in and threw a jab to hurt Hannah. Goes to round 2, ends the fight, and Hannah's a champion. Someone said that the WBA title was on the line, which made her a WBC and WBA World Heavyweight Champion, which I was confused because I did not see information, and on BoxRec there is no information about the WBA. But when I clicked on the WBA, I realized that even though Hannah Gabriels was the WBC champion after that win, I went on the WBA and I realized that the WBA light heavyweight title was the inaugural that same night. So technically, the WBA light heavyweight title is what the title was, which means 3 years before Clarissa Shields won the WBC heavyweight title and the WBO light heavyweight title against LePage, Hannah Gabriels did that 3 years ago, winning 2 weight classes in 1 match. Similar to Sugar Ray Robinson and his Donnie fight in 1988. 88. It's ridiculous. It's so damn ridiculous. So Hannah Gabriels did it, and even though there's no live TV coverage of this fight, but there is a YouTube video of a live stream fight, or it was on live stream or live on YouTube fights, record for YouTube on a taped show, which made sense why there's no commentators where people reported this. No one would ever know about this unless if you're a smart fan like me looking up information on boxing, because Hannah Gabriels just became, I think, the first woman to ever become a 2-time weight class championship in 1 fight, 3 years before Clarissa Shields did it 3 years ago. Damn, we're making history here. And of course, Hannah Gabriels never fought again. She retired for good until December the 29th, 2024, 1 full week as I'm recording this. She takes on a nobody and wins by knockouts. So yeah. And fun fact, she's number 1 in the middleweight. So that's great. And of course, guys, the WBC title would be vacant, and the WBA light heavyweight would also be vacant. Chi Connealy would be champion as we speak about that. And of course, on March the 7th, Vanessa LePage defeated Argentina by split decision, and 4.5 months later, she lost against Clarissa Shields. And that is where we come to an end for the road to the undisputed heavyweight championship in women's boxing. Wow, and we've only done this in 39 minutes and 51 seconds, and we're almost at 45 minutes. So, guys, I might as well talk for the last 5 minutes just to make it to 45 minutes, because even though I'm already done with this podcast, here's my final thought about this entire thing. And if you want to click out, that's fine. Click out because I'm already done talking. I just want my final thought about this fight. So, guys, this fight, as I said before, guys, Danielle Perkins is 6 feet tall, 72 reach advantage. And even though her body is at 175 pounds and a half pounds when she last fought against a 2-1 fighter in July the 27th in the Little Caesars Arena, which is the same event where Clarissa Shields won against Vanessa LePage, fun fact. So her body, I do believe she might be a really tough opponent, but because she's 42 years old and her alias name is the New Era, and even though she's a southpaw fighter, I do have a feeling Danielle Perkins might make an interesting fight out of this, depending if she can go 10 rounds to decision against Clarissa Shields. But my problem is, if Clarissa Shields goes for a 3rd round knockout win or another knockout as similar to Vanessa LePage, yeah, it just goes to show you that Clarissa Shields is that dangerous. Now, guys, Clarissa Shields has worked out her body and her muscles in her career, is where she gains a lot of body weight in her career. So I don't think she's going to add a lot of weight in her career as this fight is coming forward as we speak. And even though part 3 to the road of the undisputed title will come out in a couple of days after this fight on February the 2nd in Dort Financial Center in Flint, Michigan, USA, by the Michigan Unarmed Combat Commission, by Dimitri Salida Promotions, with Steve Clemente and Lena Kurylyuk, where they'll be featuring that matchmaker. It will be live on DAZN. I do feel that Clarissa Shields has a better chance. She's 29 years old. She'll be turned 30 this year, and she might turn into a great, successful fight here. If she can even tire out her opponent, because like I said before, guys, Danielle Perkins, I guess mother time is getting into her. Same thing for Kay Scott, because she was 40 years old in middleweight and she lost against Desiree Robinson last month ago. So I do have a feeling that mother time might be coming to them. But yet again, we don't know if these females have ever been married or they ever had kids. The only woman that I can already tell that does have a child is Chi Connealy. And even though as a WBA light heavyweight championship, and even though she took a break off from her amateur career early in her years back in the mid-2010s, and finally she makes a fight in 2023. She already has a daughter right now that's only a couple years old as we speak. So, and she's 29 years old, so she might as well provide food and money for her family as we speak. Which, good luck, because I do want Chi Connealy to be a successful fighter and maybe fight a big fight. I think due to Chi Connealy, because she is a built woman similar to Vonda Ward, she might give Clarissa Shields a hard time in their fight. And that would be a better fight I would like to see. But yet again, we might as well find out. But yet again, Clarissa Shields is 29 years old, and she does have a chance to box her way to a big successful fight. And even though this is for an undisputed heavyweight championship that I was never expecting, and we have other fights that are also on the card that are going to be really interesting after looking it up, the only last thing I will have to say is whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. This fight on February the 2nd might be a big deal. And I have a feeling we're going to get to that sooner than later. And even though we're a full month away from that, I really can't wait to see that fight going on. So it's going to be an interesting fight, and it might be a great achievement for Clarissa Shields. So who knows what's going to happen as time goes on. But anyway, guys, we just have to wait and see. I think Clarissa Shields is going to win by round 3 TKO against Daniel Perkins past prime. And that's all I have to say. Undisputed, and whatever the WBO light heavyweight title is going to be, that's going to be gone after she wins. So thank you, viewers, for watching this episode. Thank you for everyone else. And if she ever decides to go light heavyweight, go for it. So with that being said, thanks for watching. And the Fox Wolf says, see you next time.